As of filming this video, we've made it to our first week of December, and you know what that means. Thanksgiving is over, we're all bloated and disgusting messes, and this hellish year is about to come to a freaking end. Thank God. As many start wiping away their tears, growing their hair back, and catching up with family, I thought I'd end this weekend by making a video about writing for once. So let's get into it. Hello everyone, I'm Aaron Dusk, creator of Worlds, crusher of dreams, and author of two amazing books, The Mark of Amuli and The Varcross Key. So go check them out if you haven't already in the links below. And with that out of the way, you've probably heard the phrase, write what you know, but have you ever heard the phrase, write how you know how? Okay, I obviously made that up, but it's a real thing, and it doesn't matter what you write, be it epic fantasy or Lion King incest fanfiction, it doesn't matter. Every writer eventually settles into a way of putting words on paper that not only makes sense to them, but also, for better or worse, ensures that they actually finish the story they started. There are three different types of story writers: the plotter, the pantser, and the plantser. If these sound like made-up words, it's because they are. Kind of. If you're brand new to writing, you've probably heard these terms before, but haven't really figured out which one of these camps you fall into. I'm here to put your mind at ease and tell you exactly which one of these is superior and which ones you should stay away from. Are you ready for this objective and not at all biased writing advice? Well, you'll be waiting a while, because regardless of what some twatwaffle on YouTube said one day, there's no superior camp to fall into. So you're either someone who can naturally, consistently pull stories straight from their ass, or you're someone who falls apart if any one section of your massive and detailed outline won't work once the story starts actually taking shape. Or you're one of those special sorts that falls into both camps, where you enjoy outlining every important event in the story, but you also enjoy having your characters interact with and respond in ways
their personalities allow them to in
ways you often don't expect. Congratulations, you get the best of both worlds and the worst of them too, and I'll explain why. First, let's get to know the most common type of writer, the plotter. Ever wonder why most people never finish their manuscripts? Well, this is probably one of the reasons. This writer probably heard from somewhere that in order to write a long and complex novel, he or she must learn to outline and plot every beat of their story before they write a single word of prose. Well, don't get me wrong, a lot of people absolutely cannot write without a detailed roadmap of their stories, and if you think about it, an outline allows the writer to put down a story and pick it up again 1 month, 2 months, maybe even 3 or 4 months later without having the damn thing go completely off the rails, because those pesky little subplots and details turn into major plot holes further down the road. However, if you're a plotter, you'll usually know within the first few hours of trying to create anything resembling an outline. Days, weeks, even months may pass, and you're not even a quarter of the way done with this planet-sized conundrum you've written or not written yourself into. I've even read posts where writers get to the end of their outlines and grow so bored of their stories after writing the first chapter or 5 that they just can't continue. This is usually because everything that will be has been. Outlining a story meant coming up with fresh and new ideas and hobbling them together into something coherent from start to finish. Everything the characters do, every conflict, every spontaneous love story, everything human that makes a story enchanting and entertaining is predetermined by the outline. And once it's actually time to write, well, the mystery and the fun is pretty much gone. That's how you know you might actually belong in one of the next two camps. So let's get into the one that I'm most familiar with, the pantser. That's right, folks. Everyone from Stephen King to Anne Rice to George R.R. Martin, some of the best and most famous authors have admitted to writing their stories by the seat of their pants. Imagine that. Even J.K. Rowling admits to doing this in the early stages of her writing, but she belongs in the next category. This space is reserved for people who don't just identify as pantsers, but actually have it in their genes. We're known as the planner exclusionary radical fiction writers, or PERFs for short. I'm so fucking getting canceled for this. In case it isn't clear where my bias is, I fit into this category. A pantser is someone who does either very little planning or absolutely no planning when they write the story. They'll usually start with a general idea from a dream or a TV show or a book, or in Stephen King's case, back in the day, waking up from a drug and alcohol bender. Whatever the source, we take a general idea and come up with some characters to fit that idea. Then we create a world to fit the characters we've created. And then we throw it in the garbage several times until we write something that actually makes sense. As there were with outlines, there are very obvious pitfalls with writing this way. When you go and pants a first draft, you can pretty much guarantee you're going to rewrite it. Probably a few times. You're going to be revising it until your eyes bleed and you shrivel up as every last bit of creativity drains from your soul and ends up in your next bowel movement. You will discover every plot hole, every line of cringe dialogue, every scene that makes absolutely no sense, and you will painstakingly delete them. Now, doesn't that sound fun? We've probably just run into another reason why someone who may have finished writing their novel actually never does anything more with it, as was the case with the very first draft of The Mark of Amuli. I wrote it by the seat of my pants, went back and read it, and wondered what the hell I was thinking and didn't touch it again for 10 years. With the Varcross Key, I wrote 8 chapters, which was about 30,000 words, and ended up throwing it all away and rewriting that. Then, after I was done with the entire story, I went back and rewrote a good chunk of it again. It takes a special kind of person to be a pantser. You need a level of stubborn persistence that would make the average planner yeet themselves off a roof head first. But with the disadvantages come the advantages. One of the main advantages to writing this way is everything is happening as it happens, okay? It's like binge watching a TV show that you fall in love with for the first time. Aside from maybe knowing how the plot will turn out, you absolutely have no idea how your main character is going to get from point A to point Z. And you don't know how many lettered subplots there'll be in between those. You also have no idea how this random group of strangers is going to interact with one another, but you've defined their personalities in such a way that it almost feels like the characters are individuals with a level of sentience that you don't get with outlining. And that's what personally keeps me writing. And finally, we have the plantsers. These are the people that will plan the skeleton of a plot and pants everything in between, or they may pants the beginning of a book like J.K. Rowling did, but end up plotting the rest. This can actually be a great compromise for someone who can't stand outlining, but also doesn't require a steady dose of Adderall to make sense of anything they write later on. I actually like this way of writing, and I do use it for much longer stories. For example, The Bond of Gale and Man is a plantsed story. I wrote out a very bare outline and filled in everything else that came in between. It still ended up longer and more disjointed than I would have liked, but for an epic high fantasy, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. The pitfalls actually aren't too terrible, but you will have to deal with more rewrites than a planner and more predictability and possible stagnation than a pantser. But sometimes smushing the two styles together can keep a person focused enough to finish that first draft. And after all, isn't that what's the most important? It's probably going to be the hardest part of writing anyways, so you may as well finish it. For pantsers, their outline is the first draft. For planners, their rough draft is a roadmap to major revisions. For plantsers, well, you'll just have to suck it up and delete those cringy scenes you added when you decided to go off the rails those lonely nights Merlot kept you company. This video was short and sweet. That's really all I have for today. And while this video was supposed to be humorous, I do hope you learned a little bit of something. And also, I have a question. Did any of this hit home with some of you, or am I just a special snowflake? Leave a comment below, like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. And for those of you interested in supporting my writing and videos, there's a link to the P-Spot in the comments below. Until next time.